November 13th, 1992. Three teenage girls leave a disco in a small Spanish town. They're trying to hitchhike home. It's only a few miles. They've done it before. Míriam García, 14 years old. Antonia Gómez, 14 years old. Desirée Hernández, 15 years old. They get into a car. They're never seen alive again. 75 days later, their bodies are found in a shallow grave. What happened to them became Spain's most infamous crime, not just because of what was done to them, but because of what came after. The Alcàsser murders. This is the story of three girls from Valencia who went to a party and never came home. This is the story of how the media turned their deaths into a circus. This is the story of conspiracy theories that still haunt Spain today. And this is the story of how a nation failed three young girls twice, once when they were alive, and again after they were dead. Let me take you to Alcàsser, Spain, 1992, a small town just outside Valencia. Population about 7,000 people. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where teenagers meet up at the local disco on Friday nights, where nothing bad ever happens. Until November 13, 1992. Míriam García, Antonia Gómez, and Desirée Hernández are best friends. They go to school together. They live in the same town. They're inseparable. On that Friday night, they do what they do most Friday nights. They go to cool disco in Picassent, a nearby town. The party ends around midnight. The girls need to get home. Alcàsser is only about 6 miles away, but there's no bus at this hour, no parents coming to pick them up. So they do what many young people in Spain did in 1992. They hitchhike. It's not seen as particularly dangerous, not in small towns. Not in Spain in the early 90s. It's just what you do. The girls stand by the side of the road. Three teenage girls in party clothes, thumbs out, waiting for a ride home. A car stops. They get in. And that's the last time anyone sees them alive. When they don't come home that night, their parents assume they stayed at a friend's house. Teenage girls do that sometimes. But by Saturday morning, when there's still no word, the parents start to worry. They call each other. None of the girls are at any of their houses. None of their other friends have seen them. They call the disco. The girls left around midnight, together, trying to hitchhike home. The parents go to the police. The police take a report, but they don't seem particularly concerned. Teenage girls run away sometimes. They'll probably turn up in a day or two. But these girls haven't run away. Their parents know it. They know their daughters. Something is wrong. The story hits local news. 3 girls missing from Alcàsser. If anyone has information, please call. The community mobilizes. Search parties form. Volunteers comb the countryside. Posters go up everywhere. 3 smiling faces. Míriam, Antonia, Desirée. Have you seen these girls? Days pass, no sign of them. The search expands. More volunteers, more area covered. The police start taking it seriously. This isn't runaways. This is something else. The media coverage intensifies. By the second week, it's national news. 3 girls disappeared from a small town where nothing ever happens. Spain is watching. Spain is worried. And then the media circus begins. Television crews descend on Alcàsser, reporters everywhere, cameras in people's faces. The families of the missing girls are interviewed constantly, their grief broadcast live, their desperation turned into content. One show in particular becomes the face of this media frenzy, De Tú a Tú, hosted by Nieves Herrero. It's a talk show, and it decides to make the Alcàsser case its obsession. Week after week, the show dedicates episodes to the missing girls. They interview the families. They bring on psychics. They discuss theories. They show the parents crying on camera again and again and again. The show becomes the highest-rated program in Spain. Millions tune in every week to watch families suffer, to hear new theories, to see if the girls have been found. This isn't journalism. This is entertainment, and it's built on the backs of 3 missing children and their devastated families. Meanwhile, the investigation continues. Police follow leads, interview witnesses, check security footage, build a timeline. The last confirmed sighting was at the disco. Multiple people saw the girls leave together around midnight. Security footage shows them walking toward the road. Then, nothing. Police find evidence they were hitchhiking. Witnesses saw 3 girls by the roadside, but nobody remembers what car picked them up. Nobody got the license plate. The trail goes cold. Weeks turn into months. November becomes December. December becomes January. The families hold on to hope, but as each day passes, that hope dims a little more. January 27, 1993. 75 days after the girls disappeared. A beekeeper is working in an area called La Romana, about 40 miles from Alcàsser. He's in a remote wooded area. He smells something terrible. He investigates and finds a shallow grave. Inside are 3 bodies, 3 girls. They've been there for months, decomposed, but identifiable by their clothes, by their jewelry. Míriam García, Antonia Gómez, Desirée Hernández. The news breaks. Spain stops. The worst has been confirmed. The girls are dead, all 3 of them, murdered. The family's nightmare has been confirmed, but the nation's nightmare is just beginning, because what the police find at that gravesite suggests something horrific happened to those girls before they died. The autopsy reports are leaked to the media. They shouldn't be. They're confidential, but they leak anyway, and the media publishes every detail. The girls were tortured, sexually assaulted, kept alive for hours, maybe days, while subjected to unimaginable horrors. Then they were shot and buried in that shallow grave. These details should never have been public. The families should never have had to read about what happened to their daughters in the newspaper. But the Spanish media in 1993 has no boundaries, no ethics, no decency. The autopsy details are everywhere, on TV, in newspapers, discussed in graphic detail on talk shows. Spain knows exactly what was done to Míriam, Antonia, and Desirée, and the families have to live with that knowledge being public. The investigation shifts into high gear. This is now a murder investigation, the most high-profile case in Spain. Police focus on the area where the bodies were found. They interview people in nearby towns. They look for anyone with a criminal record, anyone suspicious. They find 2 men, Antonio Angles and Miguel Ricart. Antonio Angles is 23 years old. He has a criminal record, robbery, assault. He's known to local police. He lives near La Romana. Miguel Ricart is 26, also has a record, less violent than Angles, but involved in petty crime. Police bring them in for questioning. Ricart breaks quickly. He confesses, tells police everything. According to Ricart, here's what happened on November 13, 1992. He and Angles were driving. They saw 3 girls hitchhiking. They picked them up, but instead of taking them to Alcàsser, they drove to an abandoned building near La Romana. There, they held the girls captive for hours. They tortured them, raped them, kept them alive to prolong their suffering. When they finally killed them, they shot them and buried them in a shallow grave. Ricart says Angles was the leader, the main perpetrator. Ricart claims he was forced to participate, that he was afraid of Angles, that he didn't want to hurt the girls but had no choice. The police have their confession, they have their suspect, but there's a problem. Antonio Anglès is gone. After the bodies were found, before police could arrest him, Anglès disappeared, vanished. He was last seen in Valencia, then nothing. A massive manhunt begins. Police search everywhere. Spain's borders are watched. Interpol is notified, but Anglès is gone. Miguel Ricart goes to trial, September 1994. The trial is broadcast on television. Every day, every moment, the whole nation watches. The evidence is presented: Ricart's confession, forensic evidence from the crime scene, testimony from investigators. The families sit in the courtroom and hear, in graphic detail, what was done to their daughters, on live television. Ricart's defense tries to paint him as a victim of Anglès, as someone who was forced to participate, who is guilty, yes, but not as guilty as Anglès. The jury doesn't buy it. Ricart is convicted of murder, sexual assault, and kidnapping. He's sentenced to 170 years in prison. Under Spanish law, he'll serve a maximum of 40 years. But Antonio Anglès? Still missing, still out there somewhere. The police say he probably fled to Portugal, maybe got on a ship, maybe made it to South America. There are reported sightings: Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, but nothing confirmed. Years pass. Anglès is never found. He becomes a ghost, Spain's most wanted man, but a ghost nonetheless. In 2000, he's declared legally dead. The thinking is he probably died trying to flee Spain, maybe drowned, maybe killed by someone else, but with no body, no proof, nobody knows for sure. And this is where the conspiracy theories begin. Because there are things about this case that don't add up, questions that were never properly answered, inconsistencies that were never resolved. For instance, forensic evidence suggests there may have been more than 2 attackers. The crime scene shows signs of multiple people, more than just Anglès and Ricart. But police never investigated this seriously. They had their suspects, they had their confession. Case closed. Then there's the autopsy report. When independent forensic experts review it years later, they find problems, evidence of things that don't match Ricart's confession, signs that the girls may have been kept in different locations, indications of more people being involved.
But again, these questions are never officially pursued. And then there's the media coverage, the way the investigation was handled, the leaks, the constant television coverage, the details that should never have been public. Some people start to ask, was this just incompetence, or was something else going on? Conspiracy theories emerge, wild ones, that the girls were killed as part of a snuff film ring, that powerful people were involved and protected, that the whole investigation was a cover-up. Are these theories true? Almost certainly not. They're based on speculation, misunderstanding of evidence, and a desire to find meaning in horror. But they persist, because the case was handled so badly, because so many questions went unanswered, because the media turned tragedy into spectacle. In 2008, Miguel Ricart is released from prison after serving 14 years. He's supposed to serve more, but Spanish law changed. He gets parole. He walks free. The families are devastated. 14 years for 3 murders. 14 years for what he did to their daughters. Ricart disappears into anonymity, changes his name, tries to live a quiet life. He's reportedly living in Spain somewhere, under a new identity. The families still fight for answers. They still demand justice. They still want to know where Antonio Anglès is, or was, or what really happened. Because even now, over 30 years later, the full truth of what happened to Míriam, Antonia, and Desirée may never be known. But here's what we do know. 3 teenage girls went to a party, they tried to get home, they got into the wrong car, and they were tortured and murdered. Their families had to grieve in public, had to have their daughters' deaths dissected on television, had to live through a media circus that treated tragedy as entertainment. One killer was caught and served only 14 years. The other was never found. And Spain learned nothing from any of it. Because the media that exploited this case, it continued. The same sensationalist coverage, the same lack of ethics, the same treatment of crime victims as content. The police procedures that failed, they weren't significantly reformed. The same mistakes continue to be made. And the conspiracy theories, they've become part of Spanish culture, a touchstone for distrust in institutions, a symbol of how cases can be botched and victims can be failed. The Alcàsser murders changed Spain, but not in the ways it should have. It should have led to better protections for crime victims and their families. It should have led to media ethics reform. It should have led to better police procedures. Instead, it led to paranoia, conspiracy theories, and continued exploitation. Míriam García was 14 years old. She loved music. She wanted to be a singer. Antonia Gómez was 14 years old. She was shy. She loved her friends. Desirée Hernández was 15 years old. She was the oldest, the leader of the group. They were just 3 girls who wanted to go to a party and come home. They deserved better. They deserved to be safe. They deserved justice. They deserved dignity in death. They got none of that. Instead, their deaths became a media spectacle. Their suffering became entertainment. Their families' grief became ratings. And their killers? One served 14 years. The other was never found. This is the legacy of Alcàsser. Not justice, not closure, just questions, pain, and a nation that failed 3 young girls when they needed protection most. 3 girls, one Friday night, a ride home that never came. The Alcàsser murders remain Spain's most infamous crime, not just because of what happened to Míriam, Antonia, and Desirée, but because of what happened after. Remember them, not as victims, not as a news story, but as 3 teenage girls who should still be alive.